Arts and another edition of our Art Center Live. We're so glad that you could join us today. My name is Hyla Crane and I'm the Executive Director. And as always, I have a special guest to introduce you to today. Everybody, I'd like you to meet David Fuller, who is an artist. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm just fine, Hyla. How are you today?
I am good. Thank you so much for joining us. David's work, his exhibit, Art Stories, which is his work, is in our La Petite Gallery right now and will be with us till August 3rd. And it's quite a compelling exhibition because of some of the subject matter as well as the quality of the art that's there. David, can you tell us a little bit about that exhibition, why you've titled it what it is, and some of the pieces?
I'd be glad to. I am a Norman Rockwell fan. I like to tell a story within the frame, and he has been my mentor and my guide, even though he's obviously been gone for quite a while. And it provides a way for me to tell a story in these pictures that I have on exhibition now. I have 14 paintings, and each one has an individual theme to it, and it can be in many ways interpreted different ways by different people. Some people will say it looks like this or it does that to me. I have had some people, I had one person at the show get extremely emotional over one of my paintings, which was a picture of a hand, an older person's hand on the side of a face of what would be a teenager. And that painting is called Comfort. And it drew quite a reaction from this lady. Every once in a while that happens, and that just reinforces me and makes me move down the road to the next one. Because I'm looking for feedback. I want my paintings to talk to people. I want them to energize people. And I want them to feel like it puts a little giddy up in their day when they walk by and look at it. I've been doing this now off and on for quite a number of years, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I have developed a technique which is a bit unique in that I paint on board. I paint on a special board, which is a board which has, it's almost a foam board, but it has a quality which allows it to last for years and years. It's archival, and I paint on that, and it's a little bit unusual because my paintings are very smooth looking and have a little bit of depth to them because of that.
It does. You almost can't see the brush strokes. I know somebody had asked about that. I mean, it's clearly not a print, it's not a giclée, and yet it is absolutely smooth.
Right, and I invite people to actually touch the paintings if they want. I know that's a no-no.
No. Not with your eyes, not with your hands.
Right. But anyway, I do that, and that the reason I do that is part of my background is in coatings and kind of high-tech coatings, and I know how the structure of how things work. The kind of paints I work with are basically acrylics, but I also use urethanes.
Wow.
And I also use other things that are not normally in the palette of an artist. For example, pencil work. I've used that. I'll use powders. I'll use anything to try to get my point across. But the reason that I do that is I want a very realistic look. And at the end of the process, I coat the painting with a layer of clear urethane, which binds all of these elements together onto the board underneath, and it is very, very durable. I have one painting that's been outside my front door for a year, taking all of the elements, and it looks exactly the same as the day we put it out there. So it's almost very durable type of thing.
That's incredible. Well, that certainly means that somebody who purchases a piece of your work is going to be able to enjoy it for a very long time, and probably their children and their grandchildren and their children's grandchildren. David, you're in front of a couple of your pieces that I recognize because they've been here in the Art Center before. Perhaps if you could sort of step aside so somebody, we weren't able to bring up one of your pieces so that the audience could just see a little bit of what your work looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about the piece that's right behind you?
Behind me is a piece that it was done, combines several types of things. The background in this piece is basically Alaska.
Oh.
Yeah, the mountains are Alaskan, but here we have a Buddhist priest sitting out there on a rock, contemplating what he's looking at, and it just seemed to go together for me. I enjoyed doing that, the coloration, and also the ripples in the water down below it. Here.
Well, it is a beautiful piece. As I said, come on back with us so that we're making sure that we can hear you.
Yeah.
I know that was in a previous exhibition, and
right.
Your work really does tell us stories, and through that is very engaging, as well as now I know very durable and long-lasting, and we are very lucky to have you here. Now, tell us a little bit about your journey as an artist and how that started and how you have gotten from that beginning point to where you are now as an artist.
My life has been a long and interesting one. I wouldn't trade it in for anything. When I was very young in grammar school, my 5th grade teacher sent me down the hall twice a week in the afternoon to work with the art teacher. I guess she saw something that maybe needed to be working on. I did that for a year, and that really got me going. But as I moved on, I also became interested in science and engineering. And so the two are kind of, people have told me they're not really that compatible to be an art on one side and science and engineering on the other.
I don't know. I think in the schools right now, what used to be science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, is now moving towards STEAM, where they integrate the arts into it. So maybe there are some things that are crossovers between them. But go ahead. I want to hear how you journeyed from the arts as well as now the sciences.
Right. Well, when I got to high school, I got more involved in the school part of things. I did not do anything in art really at all until I got to be a senior. At that point, I started taking occasional Saturday class at the High Museum of Art in Atlanta. And that kind of got me booted up to take the next level. Carly Craig was my teacher, did a great job. But after that ended, I got back into the science part. I went ahead and finished high school. And right after high school, I decided to even give it another shot. So I went back to the High Museum of Art and I studied under Carly again and a gal named Maxine Yalovitz. Maxine Yalovitz was a piece of work. She was about 30 years old and was a dynamo. And I will never forget the classes that I took there. That was over the summer after I graduated from high school. But I did learn at that point that to make a living out of art, the suggestion was that you get another job, like doing ad layouts for Coca-Cola, or the one that really got me was doing fashion layouts for the Atlanta Constitution. Well, I can just see me doing fashion layouts. I mean, I probably could have done it, but it just didn't click. So I made a decision that I would go to college. And I had in my back pocket admission to Georgia Tech. So I went to school and I studied aeronautical engineering because I liked airplanes and because my father was an aeronautical engineer. So those two things together, along with my mother was one of the first stewardesses in the U.S. back in 1932.
Wow.
That's how she met my father. And so that's just a little side story that was interesting. Anyway, that went on, and I decided to go to school, and I did. I went to Georgia Tech. I got a degree in aeronautical engineering, and I had a work job at Lockheed, and I really got involved in another area called optics, because in my high school curriculum, I entered a science fair. and I ended up winning the whole thing for the city of Atlanta. And it just boggled my mind. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. Um, I won that one, and then I went to the National Science Fair, and I came in fourth.
Wow.
I didn't win it, but came in fourth. And so that launched me into a career into optics, which is part of physics, which is probably where I should have started in the first place, but you never know.
Life is a journey, and we take a lot of twists and turns. I know as we move through, I know you've been a very successful entrepreneur, have started several companies in a variety of fields. What brought you back to painting and sort of developing yourself as an artist? Because I don't know how much time you had for that along the rest of those years as you were creating companies and selling them all.
Yeah, it's difficult, Hyla, to put an exact point at which, the light came on kind of thing. I've always been interested in art. I just, the idea that something can come out of your mind, go to your hand and into the paintbrush and make a picture, make something like that is just fascinating to me. And and I was always enamored by Norman Rockwell because he had such a fan base. The guy, everybody loves a Rockwell painting because they understand it. Even the postman understands it. And I've always really appreciated that part of him. And he was also a great businessman. Norman Rockwell didn't paint anything until he'd already been paid for it. The same thing with Andy Warhol was the same way. And so the business part that came in was also intriguing. Those two guys painted, but they knew what was happening.
Well, again, evidencing that for some people, if they are clever and build a proper business model, they can make a living as artists. But again, at this point in time, I know you have your own studio. When did you start really focusing on your craft as an artist when you weren't working on other things, perhaps?
I would say when I retired. I retired in 1994. And with time, you have time to yourself at that point. But as luck would have it, I got started with two other businesses and I had another interruption. So as I say, my entire flow through here of art and science and engineering has just been up and down and up and down and up and down.
You had shared with me earlier that at one point, though, after you, even though there were still work projects to be had, at one point, once you had come down to South Florida, you also had a studio up in Alaska. So you were working part-time at your studio in Naples, I believe, and part-time at your studio in where in Alaska?
Homer, Alaska.
Homer, Alaska. So with
Homer's about 250 miles southwest of Anchorage.
Okay.
You fly to Anchorage and then you take a little plane and bounce your way down to Homer. It's an exciting trip.
So I would gather in the time that you were doing that, you were really focusing on your art pretty much full-time through the year.
Basically, it was full-time, right. So in Alaska, I ended up doing a lot of paintings of Florida stuff because I had people down here who wanted Florida paintings, right? And so for Alaska, I painted the Alaska paintings down here so I could take them up there and they could be put in the studio, in the gallery that I was in. I was in the Fire Reed Gallery, which was a really nice gallery.
So when you're saying Florida or Alaska, were you doing a lot of landscape, a lot of nature? What were you sort of doing when you were talking about being influenced by the area where you happened to be at the time, or where you're going next?
There was some nature stuff, not a whole lot. I still stuck to the Norman Rockwell thing. I was looking to build pictures that told stories. I call it a slice of time. I do a lot of photography, and as Rockwell did, photography has paid a big benefit to me because that's how I get a lot of my imagery into my head.
That makes sense because there are a lot of people who are people individuals, characters that are represented in your artwork that really draw you in. And yes, you look at it and wonder what the story may be.
Right. It's like this picture behind me. The guy, this Buddhist priest. I took a picture of him in Thailand. Okay, and here he is in a picture in Alaska. So that's kind of what happens. You take two different things and put them together. I have a really large collection of photography, about 30,000 pictures that I can go through. For example, if I need a picture of an eagle, I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of eagles that I've taken in Alaska, and in all different kinds of formations and different positions and things like that. If I need a bird and I need an eagle, I know where to get one.
Well,
and I can take. Go ahead.
No, it sounds like you have things very orderly and organized in terms of your approach to your artistry with the tools you have, not just the interesting materials, but this entire library of images that you can pull from for inspiration or simply because you know something needs to be there and you've already photographed it.
Right, but what I want to get across to folks is I don't copy the pictures one-on-one. I change them. I'll change a hairstyle if it's a lady. I'll change how they're dressed. It's a starting point to get that person in. And so I bring all of this together in a big sketch, and then I use that to make the final painting. So it's the same process that Norman Rockwell did. He had behind his studio, he had a photographic studio set up. And he would take pictures of people in various positions, like he wanted to have in his idea for a particular layout. And he had professional photographers back there, and he would get models, and they'd go back and work out all these angles and all. Then he'd take the picture and use that to make his picture.
I did not know that. I learned something new.
Yeah, Andy Warhol was the same way. He used Polaroid pictures. He had thousands of Polaroid pictures that he took of people that he also engineered into his stuff.
Well, you've talked now about Norman Rockwell. You've talked about Andy Warhol and some of your early early instructors in the arts. Who or what would you say has been a major influence for you, if not any of the people you've already mentioned?
Well, I think getting back to the very beginning, Maxine Yalovitz obviously got me off to a good start. But I admire Rockwell and Warhol. I think Rockwell was an amazing artist.
Well, those are two very different artists, and it's interesting that both seem to inform your vision as an artist and your work. David, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We are so privileged to have your work here at the Marco Island Center for the Arts. Again, the exhibit Art Stories is in our La Petite Gallery and will be with us till August 3rd. So come on down. We're at 1010 Winterberry Drive here in beautiful Marco Island.
Mm-hmm.
I want to let everybody know that we have something special happening here at the Art Center tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Our Playmaker Lab students, these are 9 through 13-year-olds who have been with us for 2 weeks and have written plays under the direction of their instructor and the gentleman who is running the theater program over at Marco Island Academy, Chris Diet. Through 2 weeks, they have written their plays, and they will be performed tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here at the Art Center. It is open to the public if you care to join us. We do ask that you make a reservation just because seating is limited. Give us a call, 239-394-4221. It should be a great deal of fun. It won't be a very long evening, but we are so proud of these young playwrights and what they have accomplished in a mere 2 weeks, and thrilled as we offer all of our children's summer programs here at the Art Center for free, having just the largest number of children we've seen here in the last last 7 years. It's been a wonderful experience. When this week ends, we still have one more week of classes, and we give a big shout out to our instructors and to our younger teaching artists. It's been a grand experience. So David, I want to thank you again for being with us, and thank you for bringing your work to the Marco Island Center for the Arts. David's also a member of our gallery committee, and we appreciate all that you do for us, your efforts on our behalf. To my friends,
thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. To my friends out there, we wish you a good weekend. We'll be seeing you again soon with some other new guests. We are thinking of you. Hope you cross our threshold, because of course then you become part of our art family, and we strive every day in every way to be your art home. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.